Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. My name's Rachel Lauren, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. And I'm extra glad because today I am announcing my first ever guest on the podcast, and that is my really good friend, Matt Gehring, who will be joining me today. Matt and I have been friends for over 10 years. We actually met at the student-run radio station at Syracuse University and have been besties ever since. Matt's always been on the cutting edge of social media. He was actually the first one to ever utter the words TikTok to me, so I know he's always ahead of the trends. He currently works at MTV, where he has established the brand voice behind MTV socials. So when you are on Instagram commenting on their content, it is Matt who is responding to those comments. And Matt, I'm so excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you very much, Rachel. To be the first guest on your podcast, it is quite an honor and on a topic that I'm super excited to discuss.
I'm excited too. I feel like I'm going to learn so much. I learn so much every time you talk to me about what you do. So, you've been a super early adopter of social channels from the start. Like I said, you were the first one I ever learned about TikTok from. And I remember when we were in Syracuse, you told me that the first, big social moment you had was actually on Twitter. You ran a Fifth Harmony fan page account on Twitter. What was it like being such an early adopter of a platform like Twitter? And what was that experience like growing that fan page?
I think that the world of fandoms on social media, whether, back in the day it was Twitter, it was Tumblr, it was MySpace, um, they really set the tone for where culture goes on those platforms. So I think for me, though, there were fandoms clearly that existed online before Fifth Harmony. For me, it was really a place where I joke and say I got my master's in social media because to me, you don't learn social media just by doing it. You learn social media by consuming it. I think a lot of people really think that they need to look up articles about how to optimize your social media. The real way to optimize your social media is to consume things, and then when you're making something, if it's something that you would want to consume, that means it's good content.
How did the Fifth Harmony fan page take off? You obviously are very passionate about the group. How did that form into something more?
At first, it was really just me wanting to be part of a community. I had my friends in high school, but it was this totally separate world where I was meeting new people from around the world online, for better or for worse. Um, But I think that by having, an account, I wasn't looking to grow it by any means, but you're just building your community and you're experimenting with content. There's no stakes to it. You're not profiting off of it. But you're just having fun and you're seeing what works and what doesn't work. So I think that, yeah, by having no stakes, there was kind of nothing to lose. And also at that time, a lot of these fandoms were really developing what these social media platforms could be used for. So on Twitter, for example, there were really, really prominent Twitter accounts that updated on every little thing that Fifth Harmony was doing. I had nothing to do with running them, but I was witnessing them, I was consuming them, and they kind of set the standard for where internet culture was to go. Today, you have these really big Twitter accounts called Pop Crave and Pop Base, and their engagement is higher than, an old school brand like MTV when it comes to updating about a new music video or a new song. That really harkens back to One Direction fan accounts that were updating on every little thing. They just arrived at this airport. And then Fifth Harmony kind of took that and did the same thing. And then it's gone on from there. And then you had K-pop groups like BTS doing the same thing. So I think that I've kind of been able to witness the evolution on Twitter and then additional platforms of how fans were using those social media websites.
And I know you went viral, which we'll get to in a second, but I want to double click on how you said you went to Twitter for community. Do you still feel like social platforms provide a sense of community for people? And how has that changed from the early days of platforms to where we are now?
I definitely think it has. One example that I love to share is Vine versus TikTok. So if you look at Vine, everybody's feed on Vine, minus the people you followed, were pretty similar. It was the same popular posts that were showing up to everyone. But when you look at TikTok, people really get segmented into maybe it's book talk, maybe it's Broadway talk, maybe it's Fifth Harmony talk. Uh, and it just kind of happens naturally with the algorithms now with what you're engaging in. And I think that that is both good and bad. You know, we can wind up in our little echo chambers by kind of consistently seeing and engaging with the same content. But I think that by having those niches, you can absolutely build community. It's definitely different than it was back in the day. You had to seek it out more in the past, and now it kind of naturally can come to you through the types of content that you're engaging with.
Yeah, and I know that people are still making internet friends and meeting them in real life, and so I think that's really cool. I know quite a few book talk people who've had success meeting
Absolutely,
friends that way.
absolutely.
So, when we were in Syracuse, you went viral not only once, but twice. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment? Did you intend to go viral? How the heck did that happen? I mean, I remember even the head of the Newhouse program reaching out to you when you went viral. It made headlines at school. So yeah, tell me about what your intention was, and what that entailed.
It's kind of funny because I think that anyone who knew me back then knew that like maybe it was only a matter of time or that it was definitely something that was like not on my to-do list, but like on my maybe that would be fun list. So honestly, I had this plan for a long time. So in 2016, there was a presidential election, you might remember it. And there was this really viral conservative political character who I personally was not a fan of. And over the summer, as she was starting to gain a lot of traction, I was like, it would be hilarious to dress up as her for Halloween. And I did. And honestly, everyone I was with on Halloween that night, they had no idea who I was. They didn't care at all. But all I really had to do was take the picture, put it up on Twitter with the right caption, make sure the right people saw it, and it gained traction just as I expected it would. That's pretty rare with viral content, but it was one of those ideas where the second it popped into my head, I was just like, I think in a number of months from now, this is going to be big. So that's really what was kind of like my first taste of a little viral moment. That was in October, Halloween for 2016. And then moving forward a few months, I was in college at the time. So I was like, I bet I could find all of her college TV station videos. And I did. And I found in doing that that she didn't, have these conservative opinions that she was known for at the time.
Hmm.
Um, so by posting those, that kind of had a second round a few months later of this same story. And that is actually really what kind of put me onto the career path that I had. The Halloween costume was one thing, people thought it was funny and maybe gained a couple thousand followers. But the January after that, when I kind of like honestly broke a little bit of news, they talked about it on The View,
Mm.
it led to a lot of journalists following me. And I got an internship that summer at a digital news site that they were like, what you did was investigative journalism.
And you're like,
Now,
what, really?
did I go on to become an investigative journalist? Not quite. But I think that it's, that kind of spirit in like, let's dig for the good content. Let's not just like assume things at face value.
Hmm.
That kind of, led me to meeting the right people and then kind of gave me this passion that turned into a career for me.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about your career. So you are at MTV. You've been at MTV for a really long time. You more than doubled the following of the MTV Instagram account. How did that happen? What did you walk into on your first day of work, and how has that changed present day 2026?
Oh, wow, has it changed? So when I first started, it is crazy to even think that this could be a job title, but my job title was blogger. I was blogging on the MTV website about music and pop culture and recaps of their music shows. That no longer exists in the same way that it did then, but I kind of forged my own path while being there. The show that I was specifically working for was canceled. Very grateful to this day that that wasn't the end of my time there. I found what was needed on their social media
Mm.
team. So I did odds and ends for a year to really keep my job, keep working on things that I was passionate about. And I think that I wound up proving myself as someone that was really, really interested in the kinds of content that we were making. I was pitching new content that we could make.
Mm.
And after a year and a half of being there, they graciously handed over the keys of the MTV Instagram to me. And that was more than 6 years ago at this point. So it's kind of crazy that I've been doing it for so long.
And I think that's really interesting. I think when we think about our career paths, um, and I mentor a lot of Syracuse students, and they'll ask me like, "How do I get to do this job?" or "How do I do what you do?" And part of that is, well, the jobs that are going to exist when you graduate, like, might not even exist now. And I think that that's a great example of how nobody like came to you and said, "Hey, like, here's your path and here's the path you're going to be on."
hmm
You kind of forged your own path. So what would be your advice to somebody who's in a job right now who sees potential or has a passion, and AI is everywhere and maybe that's what they're interested in, but there's kind of like no current path i- that exists right now? What kind of advice would you give somebody in that position?
I think the lesson for me was just do the job that you want to do. Within reason, don't step on toes,
Mhm.
don't do things that you're not allowed to do. But if you see a potential job, start working that into the things that you are doing. Get your normal job done, but prove that you are the person to take this company, this brand, or whatever you're doing into that new space. Because if things work, they're not going to say no. They're going to see that, you have the right ideas and you are someone that can be trusted in this new kind of position that you're kind of creating for yourself.
Going off that, how did you convince your boss to do the first out of the box thing that you ever proposed? Was it an automatic, "Sure, let's try it"? How did you get your boss's approval?
That's a really good question. And every company handles their social media so differently. There's companies that need several layers of approval for, everything down to an Instagram comment. And there's places that give a lot of freedom to their employees. And I'm really lucky that I've had a lot of leeway, like you said, not on everything, but
Mhm.
for, just the daily ins and outs. If it's not related to, a large campaign, I've really been handed a lot of freedom. Um, Not that this is the answer for everyone, but I think for me it was a little bit beg for forgiveness, don't ask for permission. So as soon as I started, I knew that, okay, yeah, posting on Instagram is the job,
Mhm.
but what do I find really fun? It's responding to Instagram comments and it's going to other people's posts and responding to
Mm.
their posts with my comments. So that was really the first thing that I kind of made a name for myself in that position doing.
Mm.
So really right off the bat, I was going into, you know, people's comments and maybe being a little bit more unhinged than they were used to the brand being in the past. But I never really got pushback because I think that they saw the numbers were working. And MTV
Mm.
as a brand has always been known for being, a bit of an edgier brand, not
Yep.
afraid to take risks. So I think it made sense. I don't think that, I had to be necessarily encouraged to, go be a little bit crazy online. I think that that came naturally to me, but I think that people noticed it right away, and I'm really grateful that they kind of let me continue being that little, that little bit unhinged.
How did you adapt that edgy voice? Obviously, MTV has a huge history. How did you adapt that voice for a Gen Z audience for a current somebody who's currently on social media, you kind of established the entire Instagram voice, like you said, when you post comments, when you post content. How did you establish that?
I think that for me, someone interested in music and pop culture and looking at the landscape of other outlets, a lot of places want it to be the place to give you news about something, the place that, kind of approached musicians. And this is not to say that they're wrong by any means, but from a like, hey, we're working with, Harry Styles. We're premiering his new music video on our website. Here's what it looks like. On the MTV accounts, we really wanted to be on the fans' side. We were just as excited about a new Harry Styles release as his number one update account. We kind of view ourselves as, we like to say, the big sibling to the people who
Mhm,
follow us. So maybe when it's, an up and coming artist, we might, pretend like we're their peers. So when Olivia Rodrigo was first really getting famous, we had been posting about her for years because she was on a Disney Plus show that our fan base was really interested in. So as she was getting famous, we were commenting on her posts saying how proud we were of her. I'm not going to say that I'm proud of Harry Styles. Like, we don't have that history. So when Harry Styles announces something new, and I'm manifesting that he does, we're gonna, be losing our minds because that's naturally how our fans feel. So we want to feel the
mhm.
same.
And I think, you talked about having a unique perspective and the role that you play. How can somebody take that advice when they're thinking about their own brand presence? So how they're showing up on LinkedIn, or let's say they want to create content. How can they establish an authentic voice?
I think that it's about differentiating themselves, but like you said, in a way that is authentic to them.
Mhm,
The go-to thing for anyone starting a social media presence is who's your audience and how do you
mhm,
want to reach them?
mhm,
For a lot of brands, that's actually coming up with a specific person in mind. So, maybe you've decided that they're 37 years old, they live in Chicago, they you know, maybe they take the train to work, they go to Trader Joe's and get their dinner. And that seems really obscure. But when it's actually time to make your post and to write your caption and to comment on things, if you have that person in mind, you really, the for some of us, the post will just come to you. The copy will come to you because you are personifying that exact person you've created in your head.
Is there potential that that audience could be too small or too niche?
There definitely is. I think
Mhm,
that the way the algorithms have changed is you can speak to multiple audiences, especially on a platform like TikTok. Your followers, 99% of the time, they're not even going to see your content. Your content is hopefully going to reach brand new audiences on their For You page.
mhm.
So you could be a brand that sometimes is really talking to the book talk girlies. Sometimes you're, maybe talking to young people who work in marketing. You can kind of reach multiple audiences all in the same account through the kinds of content that you're making.
And I think what you said was really interesting, how that when you took over the account, you just started commenting on, different people's pages. I think that's a great strategy for networking. And I want to talk so much more about networking on this podcast because I feel like it's a word where when you say it, everyone's like, oh my God, networking. How do I do that? I don't like cold calling people. But I think networking could be as simple as commenting on a LinkedIn post, like making those connections. And I don't know about you and what it's like from the brand side, but from a personal perspective, I feel like commenting on someone's posts and then following up and being like, hey, I really liked your idea on this. Would you be open to chatting more? Usually works. People want to feel good about the content that they're creating. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, both from a personal and brand perspective. I'll say personally, I'm not someone that, is much of a cold caller or cold LinkedIn messenger. I'm someone who has built my network amongst friends, whether those are
Hmm.
internet friends, whether those are, people I've worked with. That's the kind of network that I've built for myself, and there's no wrong answer there. So I've gotten most of my jobs through social media, whether it's Twitter
Hmm.
or LinkedIn. From a brand perspective, I've also had a really similar experience where we have started partnerships with other brands simply based on an Instagram comment. A couple years
Mm.
ago, when Romeo and Juliet was coming to Broadway, I commented from MTV about how excited we were for the cast that was announced. They were super in our MTV demographic. And the Romeo and Juliet marketing team reached out to us and they were like, "What can we make together? Can you come see the show? Can you come to opening night?" And obviously we were very excited about that.
And you were
And it's
there. I
so
remember. I
cool.
remember when you went.
It's so cool that, we didn't even have to know each other's names for this
Yeah.
partnership to start off. We didn't have to find each other's emails. They just DM'd MTV on Instagram and we found each other. I totally agree that like the barrier to entry for that kind of networking is so much lower than it used to be.
And I feel like that's a great example of you really never know what's going to happen. I
Shoot your
work in
shot.
shoot your shot. I work in advertising and marketing, and I work on the paid side of things, and we're always thinking about what can we do from paid. But this is a great example of how it costs $0 to show
Right.
interest and to make that connection. Obviously, you had the power of the MTV brand, but that can totally translate into somebody's real life if someone's passionate about a brand or even a local brand. I think that could be an awesome way to create organic partnerships.
Absolutely. It's really rewarding to see something that cost $0 have an impact like that. It's one of my favorite parts of my job.
And I want to go back. So we talked a little bit about virality and how that happened in college, but you've created so many viral moments during your time at MTV. One of my favorites, because I remember how excited you were when it started to take off, was when there was an interview with Kiki Palmer, and she had this clip in there where she was saying, "Sorry to this man." And you took that clip of "Sorry to this man," and I think it, like, went all over the internet. Again, like, how did you see that potential, and how did you know that, like, "Oh, this is a soundbite that I think can really travel far?"
I think it comes back to where this conversation started. It's about consuming social media. It's about
Mhm.
knowing like, "Oh, I've seen things that are similar to this, or this makes me feel X way." The thing that is kind of my mantra that I've come up with when it comes to what kinds of content does well on social media. It's the kinds of posts that you share. And why do you share a post? It either made you laugh, it made you cry, or it taught you something and you want to share it with someone else. Obviously, there's nuances to that, and there's gotta be more reasons, but those are 3 of the main reasons why someone wants to share a post to their Instagram story or send it directly to a friend. So when I was watching Kiki Keke Palmer not know who Dick Cheney is, my jaw was on the ground, and I was like, "Not only is that really funny, right off the bat, then she says such an iconic phrase that reminded me of a really viral Mariah Carey interview where she said, "I don't know her," talking about Jennifer Lopez. So at first, I just posted like a 30-second clip of Kiki Palmer from her Vanity Fair interview, not knowing who Dick Cheney was. And I, in real time, was seeing the comments of everyone saying, "OMG, I'm going to start saying sorry to this man as part of my daily vocabulary." So I responded to my original post and just posted a little clip of her saying sorry to this man. And that tweet to this day gets likes every single day of my life, which is a little bit annoying for my notifications, but it was kind of recognizing that this is something that was really similar to something that I had seen in the past.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also kind of funny because the way I saw this video to begin with was someone in my office knew that I loved Kiki Palmer, and she said, "Oh my God, Matt, Kiki Palmer has this interview." And then, within an hour, I posted this clip, and I was like, sure, I may have posted the clip, but Alexa's the one who sent me the video.
She gets some credit too.
She gets credit, and obviously Vanity Fair. There's also like this
Yeah.
unspoken thing in this whole story too, that a lot of content these days is stolen.
Yeah.
And content kind of just gets recycled. And once you
Yep.
put something on the internet, you never know where it will end up.
Yeah. And I think that's important to remember. I mean, everything that's online is somewhat permanent. So just
Right,
something to
right,
remember when you make
right.
it
Could come
big,
back to haunt you.
could come back.
Maybe that's the case with all of our college radio station
Yeah,
content.
maybe we don't want that. When this podcast takes off, I don't know if I want that out
Yes,
there.
yes.
um, so I'd love to wrap things up. I have one question for you and then one opportunity for you to clear some air. So the first question I have is I'd love to know a super unhinged moment you've had working the MTV socials, something like totally crazy if it was a comment or what. I'd just love a little peek under the hood.
Sure. So really, the story that comes to mind is in early 2020. Again, this was shortly after I was just new to running their Instagram account. I found this artist. Her name was Doja Cat, and she was pretty small. And every day she was live on Instagram stories, or Instagram live every single day. And I, it would be 10, 11 p.m. I'd be on my couch at home, and I would just be commenting on her Instagram live. And I don't want to say it was like unhinged, honestly. She would be playing The Sims or just, in her music studio talking about things. And I would just be responding just like all of her other fans were. What became unhinged was how she responded to it, because she wasn't used to a brand, a really recognizable brand being in her Instagram comments. And she would say things like, I don't understand who's commenting. Like, I've been to the
Oh
MTV
my
office, and
gosh.
when I go to the MTV office, it's just like, professionals at their desk eating salads. So like, who's commenting on my Instagram? And she would say, I have this picture of you in my head, but it's just the MTV logo with arms and legs.
That's great. Not
It
the
was
astronaut.
not the astronaut, not the moon person. But it was so rewarding to have that kind of buy-in from a celebrity so early in my career. And about a month into having this almost daily interaction with Doja Cat, she came to the office. She was filming, and I got a phone call from someone who said, "Hey, Doja Cat just asked who runs the Instagram account and can I meet them?" And
What was her
that is
reaction to
to
meeting you?
she was so sweet. She called me her baby,
Oh,
and we took pictures together. It was really cute. And later that night, she was on Instagram Live again, and I was, maybe enjoying it a bit too much. And I was like, so good to see you today. And she said to her fans, like, oh my God, guys, I met him. Like, I met the guy who runs the MTV account. And I do have, a screen recording to this day that I cherish
I'm
from
sure.
that moment. Um, and to see her career really blow up from there is really cool
Yeah.
to say that we had that moment.
You knew her when she was just playing Sims.
Right, right. And I hope she still is.
They're just like us celebrities. So now I just want to, as we wrap up, give you a moment to clear some air. There's been some rumors going around, I think it was last week, this week, that MTV is dead. Obviously, we're having this conversation. You still work at MTV. Is MTV dead? Where did this come from?
MTV is not dead. You can still follow us on Instagram. You can still turn the network on your TVs across the world. I think that honestly it's a symptom of the world we live in with information and how quickly
Mhm.
things can really spread. I mean, Rachel, you and I were at trivia recently where the trivia master told us that MTV was dead. So things have kind of gotten out of control. Just because a network, shuts down one little part of it doesn't mean the whole thing is
Mhm.
shut down. So it'd be an honor for anyone to keep, following us on Instagram and enjoying the music.
And when you follow on Instagram, you are conversing with this lovely person right here. Matt, it has been a total pleasure having you as the first inaugural guest on the podcast. I can't wait for all of the conversations that are going to be had in this space. I learned so much. I'm going to be more brave in commenting on people's posts and making those connections. I think that was an amazing takeaway. This has been another episode of the Fresh Perspectives podcast. I'm Rachel Lauren, and I can't wait to speak to you soon.